Hello all, welcome back to the channel. I've decided I'm gonna do what I've been meaning to do for a few months now and look at the big exciting reveal that's come out to celebrate 80 years of Thomas the Tank Engine and Friends. No, not you. You're very good. You're probably the best thing to come out in Thomas merchandise in the last 5 years. Yes you are, yes you are. I'm talking about Thomas Down the Mine, the original test pilot made back in 1983, and it was basically done as a test, as I said, so that they knew how to get the model animation right and what Thomas on the screen would look like, and of course it shaped the TV show we all knew and loved growing up. Yes, I'm gonna watch it and give my reaction to it, even though I've seen it countless times already, but here we go anyway. It's Thomas. I always wondered how they did that as a kid, but now I know they actually didn't use the Fat Control model, they used his silhouette. Yeah, I think it would have been better if they'd shown the behind the scenes footage at the end during the credits, because it's a bit like seeing the latest Wallace and Gromit film and them showing you pictures in the intro of Nick Park doing the animation. It's not right, you know, it ruins the fantasy. Yes, I'm an adult. I know that the Thomas episodes were all done with model trains, but you know, as a little kid, you could believe it was real trains, and you know, as an adult, you still like to go back and believe in the fantasy of it. That's kind of spoiled a little bit if you show the behind the scenes footage first. Don't get me wrong, it's nice to see the behind the scenes footage, but I think it would have been nice if they'd shown it at the end rather than the beginning. Yeah, I think it should have read Sir Ringo Starr, because I think he deserved his knighthood. Those first 2 seasons of Thomas were brilliant. He did a terrific job. And yeah, he was alright as a drummer in that band years ago, sure, but I mean, he definitely deserved his knighthood for narrating Thomas, and you know, he set the bar. I love Michael Angelis as well doing the narration, God rest his soul, but Ringo walked so that others could run. And on a serious note, you know, before Ringo came along, all the old children's shows that came along before Thomas, they all had that very posh Watch with Mother voice, didn't they? You know, your Andy Pandys and your Bill and Bens. You know, Thomas was the first hit show to have, you know, a working class northern narrator. So I definitely think Ringo should get a lot more praise than he gets. Anyhow, that maybe went a bit too serious. But let's get back to watching Thomas. You know, I never thought the sets would look as good as they did in the pilot, but they look almost as good as the sets in the final episode. I mean, sure, Gordon looks very different, and Thomas doesn't look exactly how he does in the show, but it's so weird seeing it look so similar but so different at the same time, and with different camera angles as well. But yeah, it's fascinating to watch. I love this bit. I love seeing the classic Thomas intro footage in 4K and properly restored. I hope they do that with the whole of season 1. I hope they do that with the whole of season 1. You know, I'd love to finally see a proper restored version of season 1 of Thomas. Don't get me wrong, I love watching an old VHS rip of the season 1 episodes. that takes me back to my childhood, but I'd love to see a proper restored job done of it, because they did a restored version just after Hit took over the franchise, and it didn't look great because it wasn't cropped properly, and they left the outtakes in that we weren't meant to see. So I think if they were to do something for the 85th anniversary, I'd love to see a properly restored version of season 1 as David Mitton and Britt Allcroft wanted it. That would be my hope for the 85th anniversary. I hope that happens someday. This made it into the final episode. You don't realise the Thomas model's different at first, but then years later as an adult you go, ah, yeah. I love this shot. Yeah, it looks so alike to the final sets, but as I said, it's so similar but so different at the same time. It's lovely seeing the old props again after all these years, you know, the driver and fireman, and as they originally looked. Yeah, I think they did it better in the final episode. You know, it felt more atmospheric. I think the final version was a lot better, but I'm glad we got to finally see this version. It's great seeing how they got to the place where they were able to make the classic Thomas series that we all grew up with look as great as it did. You know, they had to do this first, and I wish we'd seen it a little bit earlier, but you know, I'm glad we're finally seeing it now. I think we've seen Thomas the Tank Engine go down the mine now more times than we've seen Homer Simpson try to go over that gorge on a skateboard. It's probably even more referenced.
Oh dear, he said, I am a silly engine. And a very naughty one too. I saw you set the Fat Controller.
Yeah, it takes it all back, especially when seeing the footage they did use in the final episode of the Fat Controller's close-ups and that.
Down a mine, is he? Ho, 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 laughed Gordon. What a jokey chortle, puffing to the rescue. Poof, poof, little Thomas.
Do, do, do.
Strong cables were fastened between the two engines.
Do, do, do.
Are you ready?
Do, do, do. Do, do, do. Do, 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 do. It's great hearing the old music again. I'm glad they brought back Mike O'Donnell to do this, because I don't think they ever should have got rid of the original Thomas composers or the original music.
I'm in disgrace, Gordon went on pathetically.
I feel very low.
I'm in disgrace too, said Thomas. Shall we form an alliance? And Ali, what was it? Asked Thomas. An alliance, Thomas.
You see, this dialogue is different from the final episode. It's closer to the book, and it's funny, you know. I never thought it was Ringo who did it, the pilot narration. I thought it was one of the crew members, from what I heard growing up, because yeah, I think we knew that this pilot existed for 10-15 years beforehand. I remember Britt Allcroft talking about it in 2009, so yeah, we've heard little bits about it during the years, and I always thought it was one of the crew members. To hear Ringo narrating it was quite a surprise, and I think it was for the Ian McEwan and the gang who restored it. The original Railway series illustrations, and put to pictures from the actual pilot. It's yeah, I guess that works, but I think they could have shown the credits and had the behind the scenes footage next to it. And I wouldn't have had the Martell logo. I think make it look kind of like how it did back in 1983 and have the Clear Waters feature logo with the original Thomas Railway Series illustration there, you know, just how I remember it on my very early videotapes. I remember that being how it was. But I'm glad they had the tribute there to Britt Allcroft. I think that was right. So that was the original test pilot for Thomas the Tank Engine. I'm glad we finally got it. I never thought we'd actually ever see it. You know, I thought it'd been lost to time, and the only rushes left over were the ones they used in the final episode. The final episode is the best version still, and that's partly me out of childhood nostalgia saying it, but I think filmically it's still the better version. But I'm glad we got to see this version and see a missing part of Thomas' history, Thomas's origins. I'm glad we finally got it, and I'm very grateful to Ian McCoo and the more smart people at Martell for making this happen for the 80th anniversary. I think it was the perfect thing to happen for the 80th anniversary, because to people my age who grew up with the golden years of Thomas, this was perfect nostalgia. I could watch it every day. I've not had the time to watch it as much as if it came out 10 years ago, but in my free time I've watched it countless times, and it's already got 2.8 million views, which is brilliant. You know, I think a lot of people who grew up with Thomas but grew out of Trains a long time ago have seen it out of nostalgia, and I'm very happy about that. So that was my reaction to the Thomas the Tank Engine test pilot. If you enjoyed it, please give it a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and I'll see you next time.